All right, I'd like to welcome everyone here today. This is a press conference update on a case called Smoke and Mirrors. Some of y'all might recall we did a press conference on this last year around March. Before we start, I'd like to introduce the people behind me. We have Assistant Special Agent in Charge Richard Evanchek with the FBI. We have Acting Group Supervisor Amber Dunn with the DEA. We have Resident Agent in Charge Patrick Kelly. We have Special Agent Jared Chittum of the ATF. With MDENT, the Metropolitan Drug Enforcement Network team, we have Commander Bo Miller. With the Appalachian High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force, also known as Appalachian HIDTA, we have the State Coordinator Chad Napper. With our West Virginia State Police, we have Colonel Jack Chambers, our Superintendent. We have Lieutenant Colonel Brad Mankins, Major Eric Widmeyer, Captain Chris Kane, and Captain Lacey Deskins. We have from the Kanawha County Sheriff's Office, we have Chief Deputy Joey Crawford. We have Putnam County Sheriff Bobby Eggleston. We have from the Charleston Police Department, we have their Chief Scott Dempsey, as well as their Deputy Chief Jason Webb. We have the St. Albans Police Chief Mark Gilbert. We have the Nitro Police Chief Chris Fleming. And from the West Virginia National Guard, we have Chief Warrant Officer Larry Helmick. First thing I want to do is update you on the amounts that were recovered. In this operation, we recovered 405 pounds of methamphetamine, 38.3 pounds of cocaine, 2.97 pounds of fentanyl, as well as a variety of other drugs. The drugs I mentioned at the start are a plague to our community. I don't have to tell people about the amount of death and destruction, how it's wrecked our families, wrecked our communities, but those are the drugs that's been crippling our communities. As part of this case, we also took almost $1 million in cash and forfeitures. We also expect several additional forfeitures when we're done, including several vehicles. At least 19 firearms were taken off the street. Give you a little bit of a history of the case. There was a total of 4 indictments in this case. The first 3 became public at that press conference in March of 23. The final one happened shortly after that. We have so far essentially successfully prosecuted the individuals named in the first 2 indictments and had them sentenced. We've also done so with the majority of the 3rd indictment, and we're part of the way through with the 4th indictment. I think that's important, and I'm not going to offer any type of comment on the people who have not been found guilty yet, because an indictment is simply an allegation of a crime that's been committed. It's not proof, and those individuals are entitled to all their rights, including a right to a jury trial. This case represents a great example of what happens when all of law enforcement works together. While the FBI was the lead on this case, we had FBI agents and DEA agents and others working hand in hand, as well as sharing resources on the case. They were very ably assisted by all the people and agencies standing behind me, as well as a few others. Because of the value of their work, I want to take a moment and I want to list all the agencies that were involved in this case. So bear with me. We have the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the United States Department of Homeland Security Investigations, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, the Metropolitan Drug Enforcement Network Team, the West Virginia State Police, the West Virginia National Guard Counter-Drug Program, the Kanawha County Sheriff's Office, the Charleston Police Department, the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, and the Raleigh County Sheriff's Office. It's also important to note that MDENT is composed of not only Charleston, the Police Department, but also Kanawha County Sheriff's Department's Office, Putnam County Sheriff's Department, the Nitro Police Department, the St. Albans Police Department, and the South Charleston Police Department. Cases like this come together because everyone working together and being on the same page, whether you're the lead federal agent, a task force officer assigned from a metropolitan area of this community, or a patrol officer actually assisted in the investigation. Everyone was important. Before I talk about the sentences that have been handed down so far, I'd like to read a portion of the transcript of a sentencing that happened last week in front of Chief Judge Johnston. This was in the case of the sentencing of Jasper Wim. And to quote the judge, "But this case represents an aggressive and ongoing effort by law enforcement in this area to wage war on drug traffickers. It is led by dedicated and relentless law enforcement, including Special Agent King, who's with the FBI, who is one of the best agents I've ever encountered. This should inspire paranoia in the local drug trade. If you sell drugs, it may be to the government. You will go to prison for a long time. Law enforcement is coming for you. There is no escape. This scourge on our communities must stop, and law enforcement is committed to doing just that." Being a former judge myself, I find that to be both a very impressive and compliment to our law enforcement partners. This shows the dedication, the teamwork, and ability to work together. I do want to comment that we have really good old-fashioned teamwork. We also have been using new technology as well as old technology in this case. And we're also doing some new techniques as far as investigation as well as some old techniques. I'm not going to comment on any of those specifically simply because we're still actively using those. I'd like to go over some of the significant sentences received so far. Jasper Wim, who we mentioned just a moment ago, was sentenced to 16 years and 8 months in prison. Michael Allen Roberts of St. Albans was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Justin Allen Bowen, 41, of Charleston, was sentenced to 12 years and 7 months in prison. Perry Johnson of Georgia was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months. Todd Tyler Sneed of Waynesboro, Virginia, was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Ryan Keith Kincaid of South Charleston was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Talisa Renee McCauley of Charleston was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Les Van Bumpus of Charleston was sentenced to 8 years and 9 months in prison. If you notice over here, we've put together a chart, and we're going to pass out copies of that chart when we're done. And it basically shows, to explain the chart, the people in the center represent a lot of what we consider the major traffickers, and you'll notice a lot of their names have been sentenced. Now, there's a couple people in there that we don't have indicated yet because we're going to give them the right to their fair trial. Although I've been talking a lot about teamwork, there's two individuals I would like to recognize on this case. The first was recognized by the judge. I think I should recognize her as well, and that's Special Agent King. The other one is Assistant United States Attorney Jeremy Wolf. Jeremy has worked day and night on this case. I think I was getting texts from him 10 or 11 o'clock at night on some days on this. He's been very dedicated on that. I'd now like to turn it over to Assistant Special Agent in Charge Richard Evanchek of the FBI.
Thank you, sir. I'm FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge Richard Evanchek. I'm honored to stand here today with our United States Attorney, with the Colonel, and with leaders of law enforcement across our state who are credited with yet another major victory in our state's war on narcotics. The sentencing of Jasper Wame of nearly 17 years in prison is the latest accomplishment in the smoke and mirrors investigation that so far has seen over 50 arrests and the seizure of nearly $1 million in assets. Make no mistake, this announcement and our presence here today is intended to send a message. The message to our community is this: Southern West Virginia law enforcement, federal agents and analysts, state troopers, deputy sheriffs, detectives and officers stand shoulder to shoulder to rid our communities and our schools of dangerous narcotics. We are using every lawful tool at our disposal to put drug dealers behind bars, and we're doing that work every day. Our message to drug dealers is this: if you attempt to fill the criminal void left by these arrests, we're coming for you next. As the U.S. Attorney stated in the sentencing of Mr. Wame, Chief Judge Johnston commented on this very issue when His Honor suggested the efforts of law enforcement should, quote, inspire paranoia in the local drug trade, end quote. We intend as law enforcement to do just that. While this is an FBI-led investigation, by no means was it an FBI investigation. None of the accomplishments the U.S. Attorney mentioned would have been possible without all of the partners standing behind us today at the federal, state, and local level. I also want to thank the Metro Drug Enforcement Network, HIDA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, Homeland Security Investigations, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, the U.S. Marshal Service, the Kanawha County Sheriff's Office, the Charleston Police Department, the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, the Raleigh County Sheriff's Office, the Nitro Police Department, the St. Albans Police Department, South Charleston Police Department, the West Virginia State Police, the West Virginia National Guard Counter-Drug Program, and of course our United States Attorney's Office here in the Southern District of West Virginia. The men and women of the FBI here in Southern West Virginia continue to work tirelessly and in extraordinary cooperation with these agencies to protect the American people from all threats, including the threat posed by the deadly narcotics we celebrate the disruption of here today. Our communities deserve to live free of these substances, and the FBI and the partners behind you will work tirelessly to achieve that. Thank you.
There's more to come. As I stated, we're finishing up the third indictment and fourth indictment in this case. I anticipate another update to the press and to the public at the conclusion of those cases. And stay tuned. This story is very compelling. The story we'll share at that conference will be even more compelling. With that being said, does anyone have any questions of me or anyone else up here? We good? All right. Thank you much, guys.